Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email, by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal, or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone, including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
So let's go ahead and get started. Our objectives for today, we're going to review the basics of Jamboard. We're going to learn a few more tools and some setup moves that you can do when you're getting ready to use Jam in a class or Jamboard in a class. We're going to discover how Jamboard can be used to promote active learning, which I am a huge fan on and could talk about for hours, and I'm going to try to squeeze a little bit of active learning principles into 5 to 10 minutes today. We'll see how I do. And then you're each going to create a jam at the end. So just to get started, can anyone remember how we can open a jam that we have created before? All right, Tiffany says jamboard.google.com. Very good. And Carlotta, go to Google Apps and scroll until you see Jamboard and click on it. Go to the 9 dots on Google. All 3 of you are correct. Those are all ways to get to a jam that you have created. Okay, so who can remember or who can tell me what Jamboard is in, say, 3 to 4 words? What is Jamboard? A Google whiteboard. Very good. Does anybody want to build on that? A whiteboard for all. That's great. A collaborative tool, a brainstorming whiteboard. Very good. How much does Jamboard cost? It's free. Yes, very good. So Jamboard is a free Google app, and it is a collaborative digital whiteboard that all students can access from a laptop with or without a Google account. So you guys did great on remembering all that. Can anyone remember why I have the caveat from a laptop? Again, you can type your answer in the chat box. All students can access it from a laptop with or without a Google account. Yes. On the phone, if you want to give your students a jam to work on, and they're going to do it on the phone, they have to have the app downloaded. And that means they have to have a Google account. So that is the caveat. If you give your students a link to a jam for them to work on, they can access it from their computer with or without signing into a Google account, which is awesome. But if they're going to use it on the phone, they have to have a Google account and download the Jamboard app onto their phone. So that's one thing to just keep in mind. If you're going to use this often, it's important that you know what devices your students are on and that you're prepared to walk them through that download process if that's necessary. Okay, I had asked you about how do we access a jam. Well, first, here's a sample Jamboard, just as a reminder what it looks like. You also saw it as we worked on it before. In this one that we're looking at, I set the background image, which was the people with the speech bubbles coming out of their head and the thought bubbles. And then my students added the sticky notes. The sticky notes can be erased, edited, moved around. The background image cannot. It stays, it is set. So anything that you don't want the students to be able to change or move, you want to set as a background image. Accessing Jamboard, as you all explained very well in the chat box, you're going to either type www.jamboard.google.com, or from any Google page, you can, if you're signed in, you can click on this 9-dot icon up here at the top right, and then scroll down and click on the Jamboard icon, and that will get you to Jamboard. Once you get to Jamboard, then you have a home page that looks something like this. So this is my Jamboard homepage, the way it looks pretty much right now. You'll have all the jams you've ever created, and also jams that you have participated in and jams that you've made copies of. I say jams that you've participated in. This is as long as they are still, as long as the access is still such that you can have access to it. Sometimes I might have a jam that I let people participate in, and then later I change the access so that they can't see it again, but not always. Okay, I see we have a question.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So for any questions you put on Jamboard, I need to make it a background setting.
Yeah, I would say, Carlotta, if you have some questions that you want the students to be answering, then what I would do is I would create the questions, say in a document of some kind, like a Google Doc or Word doc. Then I would take a screenshot of those questions so that it's turned it into a picture. And then I would set my background image as that picture. That way the questions are there and they can't be altered, edited, or anything like that. And then my students would they would use the tools that we've already used, like the text tool or the sticky note tool, to write their answers. And one of the first things I'm going to show you how to do today is to create that background image. Okay, so I just want to give you a quick look at this Google home page and what you'll find here. So you can see on the left, this is showing recent jams. So I have it set up so that you can see the most recent ones first. But if I go over here to where it says A to Z, then I am able to change the settings so that I can change it to the ones that I've modified the most recently, or I can change it to the one that was last opened by me, or I can make it in alphabetical order by title. Then this other setting right here, I can look at only the ones that are owned by me. That means that I am the owner. I get to change all the settings of them. Or I can see ones that are owned by other people. And for those, I might be able to view or edit, but I can't change the settings for who else can view or edit them. And then here, if I want to click on this one over on the right where it has the dot and the line, that's going to just change the layout of how they're viewed. So it may give me a grid view, or it may put them more in columns or different things. This layout that you're looking at is the layout I prefer. So to start a new jam, if I want to create a brand new jam, then I'm going to go down here to the right in the bottom, and you can see this plus sign in the Google colors. And I'll click on that, and that will give me the ability to start a new jam. So let's go. Now you were looking at my PowerPoint, but now you're looking at my actual Jamboard homepage. And I'm going to go down here to the bottom, this right-hand corner, and click, and that's going to create a new jam. So here we are, we've got a new jam, and I know the big thing that most of you have wanted to know is how do you set that background image? So right now my jam is blank, but if I go up here where it says change background or set background, that's where I get started to set a background image. So the first thing I'm going to do is just click on that. And that gives me some options. So maybe I want to have a grid because I'm going to do something with math. So I can set this as a background image, and maybe I want my students to be graphing some linear equations, showing the equation of different lines. Or I could change it to notebook paper, and I want them to practice writing something or typing something. But the other thing I can do besides these that are just preset for me is I can upload an image. So once I have clicked on upload an image, then I have several choices of what I can do. So I can either upload an image that I've created, and that's what's going to happen most frequently is there are a lot of templates out there and they're great, but most of those templates need a little bit of changing to be most useful to me. So I would take a template and edit it and then save it in a file folder on my computer, and then I would upload it. So let's say I go to browse and I want to do the one that we did today, the Jamboard check-in. Well, here's that picture right here. I click on it and then I click open. And now I have set that as my background image. So that was an image I already had saved as a file on my computer. I'm going to clear that one by just going to the set background again and clicking on the one that's just plain. Now let's say I want to find an image. So I would go here to Google image search. Let's say I want my students to do a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. They promote active learning because it makes students think about various characteristics and structure of things. So I'm going to just go to Google image search, and here in the search for images, I'm going to type Venn diagram. All right, I've got a lot of Venn diagrams. And as I look through them, I want to think about how many things am I having them compare. And you know what? One thing I might do to get a blank one is type Venn diagram template. So then right here, I have a very plain one. So I could upload that. So I click on it, and then you see right here in the bottom right-hand corner, it says set as frame background. I have to click that to be finished. Now, this Venn diagram, even if I click clear frame, it stays. It's just there. I can't press the backspace bar and delete it. My students can't accidentally delete it. It is set. The only things that can be deleted or cleared from here are the stickies that people might put up. So let's say a student types a sticky and they put it right here, and another student types a text and they put it right here. Then those can be deleted or moved around. I can go here and click backspace and delete that one. But the Venn diagram that is set as a background image never gets deleted. The only thing that gets deleted are the things that were created using the tools on the left. And I'm going to clear this frame. So let's say I want my students to compare and contrast Padlet and Jamboard. How are they similar and how are they alike? I could do it that way, but if I really wanted to make sure that Padlet and Jamboard did not get deleted, then I would custom create this Venn diagram template in Canva or some other creation tool like that and add Padlet and Jamboard there, because here my students could accidentally erase Padlet and Jamboard. Anything that you set as a background image cannot be erased by your students. Now, let's say I want to move some things around. I don't like the order of what I've created. I've gone back to the original jam that we worked on today because it has several frames. If you look here at the very top where you have 1 of 5, that means that I currently have 5 frames in this jam, and we are looking at the first frame. We can scroll to the next frame by clicking the arrow button. But suppose I want to see all of the frames at once and I want to work on the order of them. Then I'm going to click on this arrow right here that points downward underneath the frames, and it says expand frame bar. Then I can see all 5 frames that I've created, and I can scroll through them quickly. Now let's say I've got this frame and I would like to duplicate this frame and create 1 for each group, because I'm going to put students in breakout groups. First of all, I'm going to go ahead, sorry about this, I'm going to clear it and take off your stickies. And then I'm going to put my own sticky on here, and I'm going to say group 1. I'm going to put it up here. Now I want to create 4 of these. So I go up to expand frame bar again. And on the frame that I want to make a copy of, I make sure that I have clicked on it. So I don't want this frame, I want this one. I click on the 3 dots right here and duplicate. But I want 4 total. So I'm going to duplicate it again and again. Now, when I go to the first of the 4 right here, it says group 1. That's great. This one, I need to change that to group 2. So I double click on the sticky, just change it to 2. Go to group 3, double click on the sticky, change it to 3, and do the same with group 4. And now I would send my students off to breakout rooms. Before they go, I would tell them which ones are in group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. They'll go to the right frame for their group and work together on that frame. And that's just a quick and easy way to make something for each of your groups of students to work on. Okay, I want to show you one more thing you can do when you expand the frame bar. So let's expand it. We're going to go back to the beginning. All right, so I can see up here that this frame that has the tools is the second frame in this jam. But I want it to be the first frame because I think it's going to be the most useful thing for my students to see when they first get on Jamboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, then hold my mouse down and do a drag and drop. So I'm dragging it to the left and dropping it. And now this frame with the tools of Jamboard is my first frame instead of my second frame. And you can do that with any of your frames. You can move them around. And if you want to add a new frame, let's say I've got this first one with the tools. I've got this second one, which is the one that everybody worked on. And before I get to the group work, I want to add a frame. So I'm going to click right here on the plus button and I add a frame. And then I can go work in that frame. And let's say I'm going to do, I want to do something about weather. And I'm going to put this one in, and then I want everybody to go in and put their name on the weather picture that best describes how they're doing today. I don't really want you to do that right now. I just wanted to go ahead and put that in there. Okay, Lilia asked, what are the small pastel colored circle above the frame? So let me look. Oh, great question, Lilia. So you can see above this frame, all these small circles. These are the people who are on that frame. So I can tell that right now on frame 1 with the tools, there's only one of you who has that open on your web browser right now. But there are a lot of you who have frame number 2 open, and that's probably because you did the opening activity and then you left it open and then came back to Zoom. And this new one that I've just created, there are 3 of you. No, now there are 2 that are there. This is really helpful for me to know. And Lilia, I'm so glad you asked it, because let's say I did assign group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4, and I sent people off to their breakout rooms and said, go to your frame and start working. Well, I would look as a teacher and see nobody is on group 2, group 3, or group 4. So those groups must be working on the wrong frame. I need to go visit their breakout rooms and make sure that they know where they're supposed to be. Oh, look, someone has moved to group 7. At least someone's in the right spot. So it helps me know. Unfortunately, I cannot know their names. I only know that there's a number of people there. Okay, I'm going to show you now how to share a jam. So if you go up to the right-hand corner where it says share, this is the same as sharing anything from a share, like that you want to share from Google. So if you have already been sharing Google Slides, Google Sheets, or Google Docs, you're familiar with this process, but I'm going over it just for those who may not be familiar. So I click on share, and I skip down to second box where it says get link. And I must change 2 things. Right here, I need to click in here. So I just clicked like right in that area. And then I go to that drop down arrow and I want to go to anyone with the link. This is going to give the most open access for your students. So I click on anyone with the link. But I still, oh, it disappeared on me. I still have a problem. So right now they can only look at the jam, but they can't do anything. They can't write any sticky notes or anything. So I have to click here and change it to editor. Once I've done that, I've changed it to anyone with the link and also made them editor. Then I can click on copy link and put that in the chat box. If I don't do both of those steps, then my students are not going to be able to write on the Jamboard. And the whole point of using Jamboard is it's collaborative. So we want to make sure we do both of those steps. Okay, we're going to go over just a few things now about active learning and how we can use Jamboard to promote active learning. So we do not want our students to be passive learners. We know that if we just treat them as these receptacles that we're pouring information into, they're not really going to learn in a way that they retain and truly understand the information. We've got to be looking at ways that we can teach that encourage critical thinking and really grasping the information at a deeper level. So I want to show you some different things that we want to do to promote active learning and how Jamboard can be used to do that. So the first thing is we want our students to have opportunities to organize information in meaningful ways. And this involves doing things like categorizing and sorting information and really trying to think through how does information connect to other information. And that goes on to our next point, which is to discover the connection between concepts. So we're thinking about grouping, categorization activities that you could do on Jamboard where they've got stickies and they're sorting things, or you're thinking about graphic organizers that you've either used a pre-created template from somewhere on the internet, or you've created your own graphic organizer template and put it up there for them to work on. or mind maps that they're creating on their own, with using like the shapes tools and the drawing tools, and really discovering and bringing forth those connections. We also want to promote active learning by experimenting with and keeping and discarding ideas. So this involves, like doing different kinds of brainstorming. And what I love is how easy it is to take some ideas as you're brainstorming and then group them together in different ways, and then like decide, okay, I'm discarding this idea, it doesn't really work. And you can do this in the face-to-face classroom with sticky notes, real sticky notes, but it's easier to do this, I think, on a collaborative whiteboard or a digital whiteboard, because they can also be drawing connections between ideas at the same time. And with sticky notes, unless you have some sort of background paper or poster board, it's harder to draw those connections. But it also creates this record afterwards that the students keep. And I don't know how many times I had little pieces of paper that I was going around picking up and throwing in the trash afterwards. And unless my students happened to think, oh, I should take a picture of this before I leave the classroom, they had no written record of what they had brainstormed about at the end of class. So that's one of the reasons I would use Jamboard in the physical classroom. You can also use it to uncover structure. So we mentioned last week sentence strips. I was the queen of sentence strips because I wanted my students to uncover the structure of how a paragraph was written or how an essay was written. And I didn't just feed them the information, but I would give them, like, say, the sentences of a paragraph cut up in strips of paper and all jumbled together, and say, I want you to try to sort out which sentence goes first and put this together into a cohesive paragraph. And that's really making them think deeply about cohesion and coherence and the structure of a good paragraph. And why should this sentence be first? Why should this sentence be last? So it's really promoting that active learning. Well, you can do the same thing with Jamboard, and then you don't have hundreds of pieces of paper afterwards. And, it actually is so much easier to create one frame with those sticky notes maybe just using the text tool with the sentences, and then duplicate that frame than it is to, with your scissors, cut out 50 to 100 to 150 sentence strips for all your students. It also helps when gaps in their knowledge is revealed, and that promotes active learning, because when they recognize where there's a gap in their knowledge, then they know what they need to go find out. A problem is when you don't know what you don't know. But once students see a gap in their knowledge, then they can take the self-responsibility to go and find that information. And that actually promotes deeper learning than if they're just given it. So think about, like, with a graphic organizer that you've set as a background image, and they're doing something, say, on cause and effect, because it's something in a reading that they did, or it's a science lesson, and they realize, I know the effect, but I cannot think of what the cause is. I can't find the cause. Revealing that gap in their knowledge is going to lead them to going and trying to find it, or maybe working with the teacher or other students to fill in that gap in their knowledge. But it also reveals the gaps in knowledge for you as the teacher. And that helps you know where you need to work, where there might be some problems in the progression of their understanding. And then Jamboard is a great place to give on the spot, really quick, short feedback so that students can make adjustments. And ongoing feedback and an opportunity to adjust based on the feedback also promotes active learning. So often we don't give students enough feedback until the exam, but they need feedback in an ongoing way, and you can give them that feedback so that they can make quick adjustments by just popping a sticky on the jam that they're doing. So that's just a little bit about how Jamboard can be used to promote active learning. A few other things that I wanted to mention about face-to-face classes, because I gave a lot of thought since last week to how or why I would use it in face-to-face classes. So I already talked about it provides that written digital record of work done, especially collaborative work that often doesn't get saved for everyone in the face-to-face class when they're using paper. So let's say your students are working in a group in the face-to-face class, and then they move on and only one person had a copy of the group work. So this is a way that there is that digital record for everyone. It's also easy to color code and move things around and draw those lines between things. And I think it's actually easier than using paper. And then for you as a teacher, it's way easier to show group work to the rest of the class. So let's say group one has done something that you really like. And if it had involved like 15 pieces of sticky notes, it would be difficult for you to show that to the rest of the class, but you can just project that on the class whiteboard so that everyone can see it. All right, someone mentioned in the chat box, and this is so true, that it provides a place for students to return and review work later, and that's part of that digital record of their work. So when I was teaching an academic writing class, I put the jam on Canvas, which was our LMS, every week after the class so that they could go back and review what they had created and done in class. So I'm going to pause one more time for questions.
Hi, Michelle. It's Carlotta again. Okay, if we want to keep it up so students can access it, can we remove the editor rights so they won't change anything, but still be able to look at it?
Yes, I'm going to change it right now. I can go back to the access and make it where nobody can write on it anymore. They can only view it. And I would definitely do that. If I didn't want students to be able to do anything else besides use it for review, I would change it to view only.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and Monique, you had a question?
Yes. How do you delete Jamboards that you no longer want?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, let me go to my Jamboard homepage. It's so easy. I actually did it earlier. So this one with the Venn diagram, I don't want it. I'm going to go down here to the 3 dots and I'm going to put remove.
Okay.
And you can see I can also rename it and I can download it as a PDF. There's some other things that you can do with these that I just didn't get to today, but now it's deleted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you being here. And I also want to thank Michelle again. All right, everybody, we appreciate you. And we will see you next time on Tech and Tell. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCall continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.